Welcome to the City Council meeting for July 20th, 2020. I'll call the meeting to order. The Governor of Iowa has declared a public emergency because of the COVID-19 outbreak. The mayor has determined that an in-person meeting of the City Council is impossible or impractical without violating the governor's mandates. When an in-person meeting is impossible or impractical, Iowa Code Section 21.8 permits a governmental body to conduct a meeting by electronic means. The meeting will be conducted by video conference using Zoom from the council chambers. The mayor and necessary city staff will be in the council chambers. 7 city council members will not be in the chambers, but will participate via Zoom conferencing. Comments for items that are on the agenda for the public hearing may be made by submitting them prior to the meeting to the city clerk, mayor, or any of the council members, or by calling 319-596-0179 during the meeting. The audio-video conference of the meeting will be broadcast on the normal public access channels. We will strive to maintain the quality of the video and audio during that broadcast. Public access is available through this broadcast. Meeting minutes will still be kept and will include a statement explaining why an in-person meeting was impossible or impractical. Roll call, Carla.
Beaufore.
Here.
Birgen.
Here I am.
Drenkow.
Here.
Glaser.
Here.
Kangas.
Here.
Rathe.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
And lest we forget our guest councilwoman, Stacy Johnson. Welcome back. All right. Item C is approval of the agenda as presented.
I will move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Glaser, second by Beaufore. Any discussion?
Do we need to note the public hearing parts as Carl sent out today, or is that just when we get there?
Yep, those will be amended at the time with those 2 items, that they are not the public hearing, but they will be the second readings of those ordinances and then also setting the public hearings.
Okay.
So, but thank you. Yep, you are correct. Any other discussion there? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion carries. Item D is approval of the minutes to approve the July 6th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
I'll move approval of the July 6, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion by Drenkow, second by Rathe. Any discussion? I do want to note that the minutes did reflect the vote tally that I misspoke, Mr. Birgen, correctly on that item. So, all right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item E, number 1, public hearing. During this public hearing, individuals may make comments by submitting them prior to the meeting to the city clerk, mayor, or any of the council members, or by calling 319-596-0179 during the meeting. Item 1 is, this is the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the demolition of the old cemetery shop and construction of the new cemetery shop in the Harlington Cemetery. Plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost. Any written or oral comments, Carla? Thank you. Are there any public comments? See, most of us on the meeting here are council, guests, or staff.
So is this time for comments? There was some echo, so I wasn't clear.
That's okay. I'm just giving it just a moment here for public comments. So, yep. Thank you, Brian. I know the video is a little delayed with all and that kind of thing. So, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and seek a motion.
I'll move approval of resolution 20-109, approving plans, specifications, form of contract, an estimate cost of $153,930 for the demolition of the old cemetery shop and construction of the new cemetery shop in the Harlington Cemetery.
Second.
Motion by Drenkow, second by Rathe. Council discussion.
I was just
Go ahead, Rod.
Oh, I was just wondering, I don't recall seeing any kind of drawing or mock-up of what the new cemetery shop is going to look like. Is this going to be basically a metal building, or is it going to look something like what's there now? I'm trying to remember what's there now. I think it's, I don't know if it has a brick exterior, but what's this thing going to look like?
It's going to look very similar to what it is now. Stick built, similar doorways, a little wider so we can actually get some equipment in and out easier. Slightly larger footprint, but it's going to look very much the same, so it doesn't look that much different from an era standpoint of the building next to it and what it is today.
Yeah.
If you were to go out to just walk around it for 2 minutes, you'll see the need. It is busting up pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just outdated to where a lot of equipment simply will not fit or work efficiently.
Go ahead. Garage doors, like the 3 bays. Is this the building that we're talking about?
Yeah, it's not the house building office itself. It's the storage building next to it with the bay doors.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt that there's a need for it out there because the building is in bad shape. I just don't remember that any proposed design was brought before the council, and maybe I just missed it, or I'm not remembering that. But,
no, I honestly, Rod, I don't think it was brought forward. I think it's so identical that it's nothing fancy, just kind of swapping it one for one, just as it looks today. It won't be much different. In fact, if you don't see it now and look at it later, you're not going to probably notice it was even replaced. Other than it's going to look a little shinier, but it's going to look very similar, if not the exact same in appearance.
I do believe there were some plans brought forward because it had to go through Board of Adjustment, I believe, to get approval because it is slightly larger footprint. So sitting where it is, getting setbacks off of 8th Avenue there, it's kind of was going to be close within that, but seeing that it really is, essentially it's the same building, just slightly bigger and a little wider doors, I think is the best way to describe it.
That's absolutely correct.
I will admit that I drove by it today just to see what the building looked like, and it really is a rectangular building with 3 garage doors and another door for entrance. I mean, it is as plain a building as you can imagine. So I would imagine that, as James said, if you replaced it and put a new one just like it, you really wouldn't notice the difference. One of my concerns was, I mean, this is a 75-year-old building, so I was wondering if we needed to do due diligence and take it through the Historic Preservation Commission, which is why I went out and looked at the building and decided that there's absolutely nothing historic about this building.
Yeah.
I was concerned because of what happened with the crypt. I mean, I think we all remember when the crypt had to be filled with concrete, and I was a little broken up the fact that we couldn't find a way to preserve that. So this kind of struck a little close to home. I thought we needed to do a little bit more due diligence and speak with someone from Historic Preservation. And then I went and looked at the building and admitted that there's really nothing historic about this 75-year-old garage.
That's kind of why it wasn't really brought to them to start with. It's as plain as you could make it. I don't think it's historic. It's maybe just old.
Old, yes.
And there is a designation. There's a difference in that. So it is very plain, and I don't see anything unique. It's just a garage. You're exactly correct.
Because of what happened with the crypt, I was a little sensitive and wanted to kind of do a little extra. That's why I took the drive out there to look at it.
Absolutely.
All right, anything further here? Hearing none, roll call. Carla.
Beaufore. Excuse me, Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Drenkow.
yes.
Glaser.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Hello.
Did Tim get called?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I passed right over your name. Kangas.
Yes.
Sorry, Tim.
I knew I didn't have one abstain. On a vote 7-0, absent, resolution 20-109 is approved. Along with that item 1A, resolution 20-110, awarding the contract for the demolition of the old cemetery shop and construction of the new cemetery shop in the Harlington Cemetery.
I'll move approval of resolution 20-110, awarding contract for the demolition of the old cemetery shop and construction of the new cemetery shop in the Harlington Cemetery to Steggy Construction of Waverly, Iowa, for the bid amount of $147,430.00.
Second.
Motion by Rathe, second by Birgen. Any discussion here? Seeing none, roll call vote, Carla.
Birgen.
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
Glaser.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
On a vote of 7-0, absent, resolution 20-110 is approved. Item 2 under section E is the approval of the second reading. This is an amendment to this. The approval of the second reading of Ordinance 1077, an ordinance providing for rezoning of a parcel owned by Robert and Lindee Juhl, located to the west of Horton Road, from R4 multiple family residential district to R1 single family residential district, and set the public hearing for August 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers. The purpose of amending this is due to the publication requirements and not meeting the 7 days there. So we're not really taking a step back. We're taking advantage of the second reading to reset this. Any written or oral comments?
Hearing.
Oh, we didn't scratch that. Sorry. Take that motion.
I will approve the second reading of Ordinance 1077, an ordinance providing for rezoning of a parcel owned by Robert and Lindee Juhl, located to the west of Horton Road, from R4 multiple family residential district to R1 single family residential district.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Kangas. Any discussion?
Let's make sure his motion adds the public hearing setting.
He needs to add the public hearing setting.
Yes. Mr. Birgen, need to add in there setting the public hearing for August 3rd, if you want to amend the original motion.
Okay, and I will amend that motion to set the public hearing for August 3rd.
Perfect.
Full second.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now council discussion, if any. Seeing nobody light up and hearing nothing, roll call, Carla.
Drenkow.
Yes.
Glaser.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
On a vote of 7-0 absent, the second reading is approved and the public hearing has been set. Item 3 is another amended item on the agenda, the approval of the second reading of Ordinance 1078, an ordinance providing for rezoning of a parcel owned by JCLJ Ventures LLC, located on 12th Street Northeast, from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District, and set the public hearing also for August 3rd, 2020 at the council chambers at 7 p.m.
I'll move approval of the second reading of Ordinance 1078, an ordinance providing for rezoning of a parcel owned by JCLJ Ventures LLC, located on 12th Street Northeast, from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District and setting the public hearing for August 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the Waverly City Council chambers.
Second.
Got a motion by Rathe, second by Schneider. Thank you very much for getting it all in there. Any council discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call Carla.
Okay, Glaser,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Rathe,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Beaufore,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
On a vote of 7 to 0 absent, the second reading is approved and the public hearing has been set. Item F is the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Item 1 is a pay request from Midland GIS Solutions, LLC for the GIS data collection 2019 for the amount of $24,916. Item 2 is pay request from Schneider and Associates for the 4th Street Southwest and 10th Street Southwest reconstruction 2020 for the amount of $7,958. Item 3 is a pay request from LeClaire Engineering Company for the 20th Street Northwest Improvements 2020 for the amount of $12,559.98. Item 4 is a pay request from Maymert Tiling Incorporated for the Cedar River Park bid package 1 grading and utility installation for the amount of $150,957.60. Item 5 is pay request from Wicks Construction Incorporated for the 4th Street Southwest and 10th Street Southwest Improvements 2020 for the amount of $128,201.57. Item 6 is the cash disbursements for June 2020.
I will move approval of the consent calendar as read by the mayor.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Drenkow. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Consent calendar is approved. Moving forward to regular business, item number 1, resolution 20-111, a resolution approving the purchase of a replacement server for the security cameras at the Public Services Center. Seek a motion.
I'll move approval of resolution 20-111, approving the purchase of a replacement server for the security cameras at the Public Services Center from Hawkeye Communications of Waterloo, Iowa for the quoted price of $7,993 for the IP camera system.
Second.
Motion by Drenkow, second by Beaufort. Any discussion?
I just wondered if this system has any sort of warranty since the last one had an unexpected fatal event of some sort, it said.
That's a good question. I don't know how long the warranty goes out. I know they usually have them for a year or two. The last one was 5 years old when it had a fatal error, which sounds terrible for that poor server, but sometimes it does happen with these. But I do believe there's usually a year or two warranty in there. We will definitely check on that to make sure it's out as far as we can get it with this price.
Well, and I don't know how, I mean, it's a 5-year-old server. It may have been close to needing to be replaced anyway. So, I mean, the life of technology is not as long as it could be.
Yeah, it was an original server to when the building was built, and it had been adjusted as we added more things to it. But yeah, it doesn't last like it used to, by all means. That's why we rotate computers every 3 to 5 years, and even that's too long in some of them. But we're not keeping things near as long, unfortunately. They're not lasting.
Well, and they're being outpaced by technology, too.
Mm-hmm. You're correct.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call. Carla.
Kangas,
Yes.
Rathe,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Beaufort,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Glaser.
Yes.
On a vote of 7 to 0 with 0 absent, Resolution 20-111 is approved. Item 2 under regular business is Resolution 20-112, a resolution approving a final plat for the proposed Whitetail Bluff Addition. Seek a motion.
I'll move approval for Resolution 20-112, approving a final plat for the proposed Whitetail Bluff Addition to consist of a mixture of 35 single-family and twin home-sized lots located at 208 9th Avenue Northwest and 1005 Adams Parkway for JDM Properties.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Glaser. Council discussion.
I think we talked about this before, and I noticed there was some comment about it in the agenda memorandum, but did the issue with the sidewalks ever get resolved?
I watched the P&Z committee meeting. They actually tabled it July 9th because of that question. And they were concerned about the crossing across Adams Parkway and whether there would be a connecting sidewalk from the subdivision diagonally to Cary School. The developer got back to them right away, worked on it, contacted the school, who said they were not interested in a connecting sidewalk, perhaps because of maintenance. I'm not sure about that. And then they discussed, they did make some adjustments with the sidewalk or with the street exits, and the sidewalks will be on the south side of the roads that go across or lead to Adams Parkway. So they discussed whether the city would want to put in maybe a flashing light at those crosswalks, maybe during school hours or something else, or some other time, or some sort of crosswalk there. They also had discussion about how they wondered how many kids would actually use a sidewalk. They'd either cut through their neighbor's yard or get a ride around the block school. So they felt like, at least for the P&Z committee, they felt like it had been answered to their satisfaction, and might be the city's responsibility to put some sort of safety measure in at that road, because cars do travel pretty fast on that down that stretch of road. So I think that summarizes the video I watched.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job of that.
I was going to say kudos.
I guess, we had discussed, I think, the issue of having a connecting sidewalk that connected to the school. I suppose whoever builds a house on that lot is going to have to know that they'll probably have their property crossed by going to school. So at least they'll be, buying that lot with their eyes open.
They did mention that there's an easement. There's a couple of different places that they could put a sidewalk if it becomes an issue, connecting to the, adjacent to the school property. So there were, I think, 2 or 3 options where it could be placed on the southwest corner of the development.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and they couldn't put a sidewalk really on the west side of Adams Parkway because of the ditch that's there. So there is a sidewalk on the east side. Not really ideal to have kids cross over Adams Parkway to walk south and then cross back over Adams Parkway to go back to the school. So more than likely they're going to be cutting through yards or picking up a ride, but there is an easement or is some room in the development there to build.
Well, I see that in the, I don't know if it's the homeowner's covenant or whatnot, there's an part where it says that you're not allowed to build fences around your yard. So I think that students cutting through yards is definitely going to be a problem. I hope that people who purchase those properties are aware that that's a potential problem and they can't just put up a fence to solve it, because that's part of the rules, apparently. There were lots of interesting rules, like you can't have more than 2 dogs and you can't have a kennel and things like that.
No fence.
That was as I read in the, let me see if I can find the spot.
He's right.
Yeah, I know that impressed me too, the restrictive covenants. I'm curious, is that normal to have that large a list of restrictive covenants in in a development like this. It was very extensive, about 2 pages worth.
Jesus.
Ryan, it's on page 4, top of page 4.
Which number is it? Number 17. Item number 17.
Mhm.
Item number 16 disallows dog kennels and says you can't have more than 2 dogs or cats.
Pays to read the fine print before you buy them.
No kidding.
Well, I kind of bring this up because we had this issue, I believe, last year with a person who bought a property on Bramer Avenue who is upset about not being able to put in their own driveway. And I'd like to encourage people that when they buy properties, make sure you read all the fine print and all of the rules that go along with the property. So don't make any assumptions. You're going to, build a house and put up a fence and, home for your 5 dogs. So.
All right, anything else?
Well, the one thing I would like maybe Mike to comment on is the PVC piping that's going to be with this development as opposed to the metal pipes.
Sure. So we have a developmental specification for the city of Waverly to utilize plastic water main and plastic services within the subdivision. This is new to Waverly. This is being driven by the cost of steel, as well as the plastic pipe is becoming more common practice throughout the state of Iowa, and has been demonstrated to be a durable and reliable product that is now being incorporated into the standard statewide urban design specifications. So we feel that this is a substantial enough subdivision that it would be appropriate to treat this as kind of a demonstration project for our own staff, both in the engineering and on the water department side, and we'll see how it goes. We feel very positive about this. Again, this is being used throughout Iowa and the Midwest, and it's probably time for Waverly to look at this. There may be instances where there are future subdivisions that are kind of filling in gaps that we may say, no, we don't want to be flip-flopping back and forth between ductile iron pipe and plastic every few hundred feet. But again, this is a large enough and complete enough subdivision that we are supportive of this developmental specification for plastic water main and plastic water services.
And I assume that all of that will be recorded on our cutting edge GIS system where we record the location of all the water mains as well as what they're made out of?
Yes, we're certainly going to be making sure that this is in our system. Yes. Other thing that I think is important to point out with this is that in the developer's agreement, you'll see that there is $51,500 in infrastructure support. If I recall correctly, that's I think $30,000 for sewer main extension up to the subdivision from, I believe it's 5th Street Northwest, and then also an additional $21,500 in support to extend the water main by boring underneath Horton Road, or Adams Parkway, Adams Parkway, so that we do not disturb the pavement. Will be, it's proposed to assist with that cost to bore underneath the roadway to connect the water main. And that $51,500 would be paid upon acceptance of the infrastructure by the city council.
Often when there's a subdivision this size, there should be some land set aside for leisure services for a park. Is that included in this subdivision?
Yes, there is a provision in the development agreement that the developer will give $12,000 to leisure services to enhance the park across the road, across Adams Parkway. And because there really wasn't a need for a park within the bounds of the subdivision.
Yes, I was also observing that there wasn't really a need for river access, given that we've got the boat ramp across the street.
Right. Anything further there? All right. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Rathe,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Beaufore,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Glaser,
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
On a vote of 7-0 with 0 absent, resolution 20-12 is approved. I just wanted to echo what Councilwoman Rathe had mentioned already. It's important to recognize the developers that respond to the requests of city commissions in the city, and hearing that they had some questions and might need to do some revamping of plans. I think the turnaround, correct me if I'm wrong, Ann, was just the next day from the developer on the one item. And that really shows their commitment and follow through with the city to get things like this off the ground. So we can appreciate that. Item number 3 is resolution 20-113, a resolution approving the creation of a human equity and diversity task force. One thing, amending the roster, Libby Fry is off of the roster per her request, and then Bob Brunkhorst obliged to step down at my request just to balance the gender, the balance that we had there. So just those 2 corrections. So that would be the new resolution. Everything else stands the same except for those 2 stepping down. So seek a motion there.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 20-113, approving the creation of a human equity and diversity task force.
Second.
Motion by Beaufort, second by Glaser. Council discussion here.
Can we get a little bit of an explanation as to the process for how this committee was formed and how the individuals were chosen for it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It was a combination of different things. So as far as the formation, it was a response to a couple different things. In the 2018 August, it was in August of 2018 strategic planning meeting, it was determined amongst other deliverable items that diversity and inclusion was something that needed to be discussed, and that formation of a group, a task force by the city was recommended. After that, the Embrace group was formed, which is an excellent group. They had their event last May. They've had their book clubs. They've got an active Facebook presence, drawing in individuals. It's a great program. So kind of, bringing that forward and wanting to carry that mission on and enhance it. The goal was to, put the task force together, and then, we need to be diverse and inclusive, and that starts with a diverse and inclusive task force with its membership. So what I did is I reached out to several individuals that we hadn't heard from before. We need to introduce new voices. Otherwise, we're hearing a lot of the same messages, which are still valid and need to be heard. But there are also people that reached out to me and said, hey, I feel that you're putting this task force together just to check a box, and probably have the same individuals on this task force that we've heard from before. And I know that there's people out there in the community that would like to be heard from. And I asked them who those people were, and I got a few references, referrals that way. I received a couple of referrals from Chief Parcel. I just looked at opportunities where we could involve a wide variety of different cultures and different needs throughout the community, whether it be community-based service employees that are working with clients. It might be, we had some business owners, we had adults that take care of disabled children, we have a daycare provider, just a wide scattering of individuals there, even African Americans. We've got a Latino that is seeking citizenship here in our community, amongst other things. So just a wide, some of it was pushed out, most of it was referral. A handful of people just came out and said, hey, I'm interested in being on this task force.
What kind of box did they think we were checking by recommending a task force be developed?
Just appeasing the request to have a task force with really no, tangible goals going forward. And those tangible goals here is to actually have a conversation to identify opportunities for improvement in addition to what we're already doing, such as the Embrace Committee has done it, over the last 2 years now. Because Embrace would have had their event this May had we not been in the midst of a pandemic, and I fully support those activities. I want them to occur. I want us to have really great working relationships with Wartburg, the school, all of our employers. They all bring something to the table. So just a wider variety than just a black and white issue here. That's what diversity and inclusion is in our community, is all of those things. Socioeconomical concerns, food insecurity concerns. We have people that right now are struggling to make ends meet. And we need to hear from those individuals too.
So is this the task force that will develop what the commission will do, or is this the final task force?
I think that goes hand in hand with this council to assist in determining what a commission or a committee in the future, if there is one developed, because it would have to go through the council to be developed. I had a meeting today with President Colson and Superintendent Clamfuth, and we discussed, kind of those goals, and they're going to send me some thought points to give to this task force of their concerns. They want to be involved from the outside. I mean, they're not committee or task force members, but they want to be involved in assisting with this because it is a wide community thing. It's not just, they see that it's not just the city, it's the entire community. So we've got the city, we've got Wartburg, we've got businesses, we've got the school district, but then we've got the community that is everything. So we're taking the community approach to this whole thing, and everybody, they want to play in this and be active. So going down the road, if this council and the task force come to the conclusion that a commission or a committee is developed, it may have none of these task force members on it. It could have a few of them and different people. Mm-hmm. So this is not the end all for what this going into the future is. Like I said, from day one is just to identify opportunities for improvement. And if one of those things is the formation of a commission or committee, then great, then we'll move that way if this council wants to go that way.
So one outcome is that they might say that we don't need a commission on this.
Mm-hmm. I got a little, somebody was talking over something. Can you repeat that, please?
I just wondered if one possible outcome is that this task force might say that we don't need a commission on diversity and human equity.
It would be fair enough to say that they could, but that doesn't mean that this council still can't act and put something together.
It sounds like from the resolution that the goal of this task force is to draft the mission statement, identify opportunities for improvement, and then set goals to be able to tell whether, I guess, the task force is effective. So then are they also going to be setting up how long people will serve on the task force and what the rotation of members is and how many members are needed on the ultimate commission, the eventual commission?
Yeah, and I think some of the best guidelines for that is looking at our existing commissions to see how many members are on there, how long their terms are. Maybe it needs to be a commission that's a little bit larger than others. Maybe it's smaller than others. It just depends on what they find. maybe there isn't a huge calling for a certain demographic to be involved, whether that be somebody that speaks towards socioeconomic challenges in the community. Maybe they say that that's not our place at this table. So that's what we really want to discover and learn more about through the task force. It's kind of an open-ended situation, much like when the Ball Diamond Task Force was created and you were part of that. The understanding that I got is when that was formed, it was, here's the subject matter of ball diamonds and the future of ball diamonds in Waverly. And it wasn't, nobody said we want ball diamonds in town. It was, this is the conversation piece. The task force took it on with their leadership and said, what is feasible? What property does the city own? They looked at various properties, decided on one. Then they started working with, the development plan for it and kicked that around. And then they made the recommendation to the council. So that's the same process that I see here is this task force sitting down, everybody sitting down and determining, okay, diversity, human equity, inclusion in the city of Waverly. That's the discussion point. Do we need a commission? Do we need a committee? What are their goals going to be if we do decide to go that way? I just didn't want to leave I didn't want to leave out any demographic from consideration into the bigger picture of what this might be versus just a single focus point committee. It's like leisure services.
Who's leading this group? It pulling it together, scheduling the meetings, doing those kind of actions.
So right now, I'll be working with the city administrator. I'll be doing the legwork initially to try to determine when people are available to meet and that kind of thing. But the leading into the first meeting, city administrator will be the lead. But at that meeting, that task force will determine who that chairperson is and that. So it'll be self-led. Then James will remain on as a city liaison, as a staff liaison, much like Garrett sat on or has been sitting on the Ball Diamond Task Force as a city liaison. And then another agenda item here is the council liaison, much like we have for the other one. So that's the structure of it.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have thoughts about when the first report should be brought back to the council by this commission?
Well, my intent and my communication to the prospective task force members today was after tonight's meeting tomorrow morning, I'd like to get the email out, soliciting what people's availability is, certain days of certain weeks at certain times to determine when that first meeting could happen. And I would like it to, happen relatively soon because I know we're all eager to get this going and hear the initial reports of, what's this task force going to do for the community, for us to have tangible outcomes, deliverables that we can evaluate. So as soon as I get a date set, I would presume that within, a couple of days, we'll get minutes back from that meeting. That would be the expectation. And then I would presume that as soon as we can, maybe at a study session, just review those minutes in the public sense, see what has been happening. But a final report, I don't know. I mean, we haven't gotten a quote final report from Ball Diamond Task Force yet until, everyone wants to know when the ball diamonds are going to officially open. We don't know when a committee or commission would officially be formed from this. It just depends on the momentum and the conversations that transpire within the task force.
Will community members be able to attend this type of a task force group? Like outside community members be invited into that?
Absolutely.
Outside, okay.
Yep. So right now, the biggest challenge, obviously, with the pandemic is if we have, and it's a large group, I understand that, but I wanted to, again, capture all those different demographics. But if we have, we've got we got 18 people on right now on this meeting. And so if you add 20 more community members, you may have task force members that are on other pages that you can't, communicate effectively. So it very well may be the first meeting is, here at the Civic Center is best that we can spread out. Just depends on what that interest level seems to be, but we have to follow the guidelines the best of our ability. So I want people to be involved, and I want people to always understand that they can reach out to a task force member at any time to voice their concerns. And that's what's important here, that
it is.
We all have a voice and there are avenues to speak that voice.
That's great.
I would suggest setting a timeline of when we would expect a report. I know with the Ball Commission, I can't remember the exact dates. We'd have to look back at the minutes, but there were periodic updates rather than just looking at the minutes, which will be published on the city website. But I think it would be helpful to say, we'd like a final report from this working group within 2 to 3 months.
Absolutely.
Let us know, what do you see as the goals for this commission? Do you think it's relevant? Do we even need one? If they come up with that conclusion, so that the council has something to vote on and to further discuss. I don't know that we need to discuss their minutes of each meeting. That, we can read them. But I think it would be helpful to have a timeline and a relatively urgent one.
Yeah, just like we've had, reports from, Mr. Langner on the Ball Diamond Task Force, I would expect the same thing from this task force. Otherwise, why are we doing this? They are going to be held accountable, to the council to provide a report. But I think given the nature of what it is, I don't want them to feel rushed, but I do want to have a deadline of a tangible report that says we've accomplished this, this, or this, and also maybe a request to extend it out. But they do definitely need to be reporting back what's been going on, and I think it's fair enough to say that should be beyond the minutes.
So I see that there were 18, now there's 16 members. The size of the committee, was that something that you had in mind, or did you just keep adding people until you kind of ran out of space? I mean, did you have I want 10 people on this committee, or I want 16 people on this committee, or is it just?
I did not go into this with, I want a minimum of this and the most I can have is this. I started looking at opportunities where there was a fit for something. And if there was something that I wanted, food insecurity or, those types of things, I reached out to, somebody that I could, put in that place. I had a couple people that beat me to the punch and got a hold of me and said, hey, I fill this void, or I fill this spot with this concern. One happens to be an employee at Pathways, and said, hey, I think I would be beneficial to this group. And so I took that into consideration, and I built a long short list and then narrowed it down to the final list from there. So there was some redundancy in, in some areas and some demographics or concerns. So I didn't want to overinflate in one certain area.
I just would want to agree with Ann that I think, having specific goalposts would be extremely beneficial here. And what I don't know 100% of this task force, but the people I do know, I think something great could come out of this. It's a great group of people. So I'll be excited to see what happens.
I am too, and I think to echo that, what Matt just said and what Ann said earlier is, if we have deliverables or the council has deliverables that they would like to see at least discussed at the task force, we can always send things, up the pipeline to them, say, hey, we'd like you to consider discussing this. The same thing that we've done with the Ball Diamond Task Force.
So is the person who's on here from Pathways, are they there to represent people who work in human services or people who are mentally ill or chemically dependent or? are they serving as a proxy for those people? And did you consider getting people who actually have those disabilities on the commission rather than proxies?
Right. I do have an addiction recovery counselor, actually two of them, one that works with males and one that works with females, to share what those individuals in their non-clinical arena experience versus the clinical arena experiences. I know that, with HIPAA, even though you're not shared names, sometimes you can get into sticky situations with that. But the person from Pathways also is, obviously a community member, has young children. So it's more than just what that person does in their life is what their job may be. It may be more than what their home living environment is. There are some people that fill multiple roles. You've got one person that is a daycare provider. You've got other people that serve in other capacities throughout the community. You've got one person that works at CUNA, is a Latino, is an immigrant seeking citizenship. You've got, an individual that is a member of the community who is a performing artist, has children in our school, has a child that goes or went to Wartburg. I just found that out today. So obviously we learn more and more and more about the people that are on this task force every day. And when I had the opportunity to talk to the superintendent today, he shared that information with me, and I was like, I had no idea about that. It just made this task force even better with that person, because we get to hear those experiences of those children in our school district, at Wartburg, in the community, all of those things.
I do have some concerns about the people who are on this committee, in the sense that I don't see a lot of people who are part of the Embrace group. I don't see a lot of people who have been going to the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. I'm a little concerned, as I think Ann described, that we have people who maybe are serving as proxies for other things. Like, for example, and again, there are invisible disabilities that I don't know all these people on this committee, but I don't know if we have someone who's, say, confined to a wheelchair, or someone who suffers from MS, or things like that. We have people who work with people with disabilities, but I don't know that we actually have kind of individuals with those personal experiences. And I would feel more comfortable if we had the actual individuals serving on this commission rather than people who simply work with those individuals. I think there's a big difference between having experienced it yourself and experiencing it secondhand. So that's just a concern of mine for this committee, especially when we're talking about a 16-member commission. I feel like a lot of these experiences are going to be diluted amongst all the voices there. So I'm a little concerned about the effectiveness of this committee based on its size and based on the representation within that commission. To be blunt, we have a commission that's focusing on diversity and equity that I'm pretty sure is over half white. And that just seems funny to me.
Can I interject a little bit here, please? I just want to say that I think that's what this task force is kind of bringing forward a little bit. This community is diverse in some ways and not in others. So this task force, I think, has come about to try to identify some of the gaps that we have in this community. And you bring a good point, Brian, that maybe there's not enough representation. And I think, this community is not diverse like it should be, period. And that's what we need to work on. As identified in 2018 in strategic planning, we need to maybe make this community more welcoming. And sometimes I agree with you. There needs to be people on here that are diverse. And sometimes some of those people don't feel comfortable stepping up. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, I come from low socioeconomic background, 100%. So I can be part of that diversity. I used to have to go to the food bank.
Yes.
I was on welfare. Mm-hmm. So, and it's hard to speak up. And I think that there are some people that did step forward that feel comfortable enough, but there are also people that don't feel comfortable stepping up because they will get shamed or punished, or because this community might look down at that. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to, their children might suffer because they're on a task force. My husband has concerns, and I have concerns even serving on a task force, because we are concerned that maybe my children might feel the wrath of this because the community might step up and be nasty to me because we're not a diverse enough community. So some people might not feel comfortable stepping up. I'm going to step up.
One of the things, I could just interject this point here, and hopefully we can move this along, but it's very obvious, and this came up with, it's seeping into transportation policy. It's very obvious that there's policy that's creeping in, that's intentionally or not, but it's coming in, it's attempting to divide communities and to divide people. Mm-hmm. And I see this as being hopefully an opportunity to hopefully address some of that. What I will also say is this is another issue, though, that if we allow it, it is further dividing us. Mm-hmm. So, let's not let it do that. I think we should call the question.
I think it's important that we all keep in mind the goals that came out of the strategic planning session. And one of those was economic development, and our acknowledgement that most small rural communities are growing because immigrants move to those towns. Not necessarily immigrants of color, immigrants of all diverse backgrounds and sexual orientations and religious faiths, et cetera. And so I think it's very important that we not water down what came out of the strategic planning session as being meant by diversity, that we were not talking about people who might be discriminated against on the basis of height or weight, or even socioeconomic status. All those things are valid reasons that at times people are looked down upon or treated differently. But really what came out of the strategic planning session was a need to be prepared in a welcoming and practical way for people of diverse ethnic and racial backgrounds. So I think it's very important that, and that's what Embrace, started as, and has tried to expand their reach some, including when they planned their festival and the educational programs that they're doing. But I think it's very important that we not miss the message of what's happening in this country and the discrimination. I know Brian gave an example at our last meeting about discrimination in housing developments here in town. That was from 50 to 60 years ago. And that was not on the basis of height or weight. That was on the basis of color. And so I just hope that the task force will bring us some concrete goals and steps for this task force with concrete suggestions on membership. And I would recommend that we add to this that they give us a report in no more than 3 months.
I would concur with that.
I got to interject because Matthew did call the question just prior to Ann.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Her statement. That's okay. I just wanted to let you finish instead of being rude and cutting you off. We can draw that point of the report requirement. We can draw that up through and incorporate that into the goals of that task force. I'm fairly certain. So roll call vote, Carla.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
Glaser,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes, even though I didn't get to input since it was called before I had a chance.
Rathe,
Yes.
On a vote of 7-0 with 0 absent, resolution 20-113 is approved. I apologize, Mr. Kangas. Item number 4 is review the proposed inspection and repair of the sanitary sewer force main located on the Adams Parkway Bridge.
If I may, Mayor, there's no action required at this time. We just want to make the council aware of our concerns with the force main on the Adams Parkway Bridge, the rental agreement for the snooper truck, and the professional services agreement with WHKS will be brought forward at the August 3rd meeting.
I noticed that this was noticed by a boater passing by. Is there is there some inspections scheduled or something that to make sure that we don't have to rely on a boater or kayaker to identify a problem? And I noticed those things that are trying to hold it up right now, and that just doesn't look like it's going to last. So, but my big concern is, are there inspections that are going to be scheduled to help prevent stuff like this, or be on top of things that repair this before something bad does happen? Because I know I've kayaked there and I would have never noticed something, and this, thank God, this person noticed that before something bad happened.
Right. So every 2 years, the bridge receives a thorough inspection, and we're going to add the inspection of the force main to that agreement going forward. I think what became most apparent was that the actual hanger straps, that at least one actually broke, and you can see that in the image on the, I think it's the last page. Mm-hmm. Other hanger straps have simply pressed into the insulation that is to protect the force main from freezing during the winter time. So we have had new straps manufactured. We've also had manufactured what we'll refer to as a saddle. So if the hanger strap is like 2 inches wide, the saddle is 8 or 9 inches wide, to provide some additional support underneath so it will not cut into and crush the insulation protecting the force main.
Thank you.
Anything else here on this item? Thank you, sir. Item number 5 is the second reading of Ordinance 1076 and Ordinance amending Chapter 37, Section 37.2 of the Waverly Municipal Code.
I will move approval of the second reading of Ordinance 1076 and Ordinance amending Chapter 37, Section 37.2 of the Waverly Municipal Code.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Glaser. Any discussion? This is the second reading of the ordinance related to the airport commission. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Beaufore,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Glaser,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Rathe,
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Vote of 7-0 with 0 absent. Item number 5 is approved. Item 6 is approval of Councilwoman Heather Beaufore as the council liaison to the Human Equity and Diversity Task Force.
If I might Mayor Hoffman, I like to make a statement.
Can I have a motion first and then council discussion?
Motion for approval of Heather Beaufore as council liaison to Human Equity and Diversity Task Force.
Second.
Motion by Beaufort, second by Kangas. Now council discussion. Heather.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to give you a little statement, maybe about me, and then make a further statement about the council appointment, right, that we're experiencing right now. We're voting on right now. Excuse my dogs. They're freaking out right now. So about me, I have 3 dogs that are chaotic. But everyone learns and processes things different ways and at different paces. No one should be shamed for these individualized characteristics. I learn by listening and observing, followed by processing and doing. This process takes me time. Sometimes people have mistaken my quiet process as being inattentive, uncaring, rude, and uninterested. I've even been called names for not having an immediate response, answer, action, or reaction. To me, there are no words that can truly make anything better. Words mean nothing to me until there is action that follows. With that said, regarding the council liaison appointment, last council meeting, I called out for the task force on diversity to be created sooner than later. This was part of the strategic planning in 2018, which I was not a part of, but want to carry that forward as an elected council person. In June, my eyes were opened how needed it was in our community. This was something that needed to be higher on our priority list. I would like to make a bold statement when it comes to the council liaison for this task force. And I want to recognize that there were concerns that I am not qualified to be such liaison by a community member or two. So I would like to extend the offer to anyone who feels they would be more appropriate for this appointment. It's that important. This should not be understood as me not accepting the mayor's appointment, nor is it that I intend to step down if the appointment is approved. What it means is if there is someone that can justify their qualifications to serve more effectively and efficiently as a liaison for this task force, then I would step aside and have that individual do so. It's that important. However, even then, I would remain fully engaged as allowed to as a citizen in our community. And my intentions for bringing this up, this urgent need for the task force, were to help the community grow and achieve its goals, to learn myself, to empower diversity and equity, and as a leader, to encourage others to step up and learn, understand, and want a diverse and inclusive community as well. I value being appointed as a person who was not a part of the strategic planning meeting held in 2018. I volunteered to be a liaison because I felt enlightened to do so. I want to do something, not just say something. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ms. Beaufort. Any other council discussion? Tim?
I would simply note that of a council of 7 white citizens of Waverly that are the elected representatives, 2 of them are females. I think, Heather, you are more than qualified to represent us as the liaison for this commission. Mm-hmm. And I am happy that you are stepping up and are wanting to be the liaison.
I would also point out that I would encourage anyone in the community, including anyone on council who wants to be involved in these commissions, that they are free to attend. So while I support Heather in her role as the council liaison. I foresee myself attending many of these committee meetings as well.
Anything else? All right. All in favor of this appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Item number 7 is the approval of the mayoral appointments. Approve the following appointments. Douglas Benschotter is replacing Lance Gritters on the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term expiring May 1st of 2025. Gary Grace, Steve Egley, and Jean Lieb are reappointed on the Economic Development Commission for terms expiring July 1st of 2023. Any discussion? I need a motion.
Move approval of the mayoral appointments.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Discussion, please.
I do just want to call one thing, is that I'm not going to speak against any of the nominees, but we're talking about this diversity and inclusion task force, and we are appointing 4 white males as the mayoral appointments. I wish that there was some way that we could do a little bit more due diligence and get better representation of our community on these commissions. So again, I'm not going to speak against any of these nominees. I think they're all great people, but I do wish that we could get better representation on these commissions. And while we're now talking about the need for this commission, I think this just emphasizes some of the problems that we're seeing.
Yep, and with now having the application procedure to apply for consideration for that, it's my procedure to entertain people for new vacancies, that they go through that application process. These reappointments doesn't change up the makeup from when these individuals were previously appointed and the other individuals on that commission were appointed. So some of that diversity has been neglected, for quite some time. And I think it goes across several of our boards and commissions, but it is something that definitely we need to take into consideration. And I will challenge the city staff to prepare a breakdown of the commissions and committees that we have, so that that can be evaluated by the task force, just so that they're aware of where those sit, what the makeup is, that kind of thing. And that will prompt that conversation.
I guess I have one question about this, and I'm trying to keep, being silent isn't because I don't agree with all of this or that I do agree. One of the things is I know those gentlemen that have all been selected happen to know just because I live in the community this long. And I know that some of them bring a lot of different diversification into being, I know some of their children, I know some of their spouses, I know some of their things that they've struggled with in their lives, things that they bring into the community. Why is it that we're not, that also is a part of diversification? It isn't simply what we look like. It is what we bring into that, being a female, being a male, being transgender, having a child that's transgender, having a child that's Black, having a child that's got a disability. There are so many things that define diversification that we sometimes, I feel like we sometimes lose sight of the fact that it isn't just based on one thing. And that's the only thing. I see so many differences in all the people sitting in this group just doing this for 1 month. I know what a lot of you have in your lives. I know, and there's probably things I have no idea about. But none of you have any idea what I brought to the table either. And so there's so many wonderful traits that people bring in that just might not be defined as what somebody has defined as what diversified person could be. And I just want to make sure that we don't forget that. Some people bring in a lot of other things that we just aren't visually on a piece of paper that we can see. And that was just an opinion.
I would note that, yeah, I think when I first got on the council 10 years ago, the state had just passed some rules as far as gender equity on commissions, and we spent quite a bit of time, Mayor Brunkhorst in his couple terms, balancing out the commissions to make sure we had the gender equity on there. And Brian brings up a good point with that there is additional diversity that we can still look to. Part of that is the volunteerism and the willingness of people to serve too. So it's not just being able to pluck somebody and say, hey, you fit this, we're going to put you on. There has to be a willingness to be there as well. So there's a lot of factors to go in, and I certainly hope this commission can help look at that, and certainly hope one of the things that comes out of this commission is helping set a path for Waverly to kind of be a trailblazer for opening itself up for people to feel like they can become more involved from a diversity of backgrounds and get involved with the community as well as living here.
Thanks, Tim. I agree with you 100%. I think that it does take a willingness and acceptance and to be able to feel comfortable serving and speaking up, because it can be hard, and there's a lot of judgment out there in our community, all over, but in our community, I've felt that judgment myself. So I know that it's out there, and it's hard for somebody to speak up, especially when they're in those socioeconomic positions, the racial positions, the disability positions, all those. It does take a lot to speak up and not be criticized. So thanks.
All right. Anything further before we vote? All right. All in favor of these mayoral appointments, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries on the mayoral appointments. Item H is reports from boards and commissions. Item 1 is Board of Adjustments from May 11th of 2020. Item 2 is Historic Preservation Commission minutes revised for May 26th of 2020. Item 3 is Bremer Waverly Law Board minutes of June 8th of 2020. Item 4 is the Airport Commission minutes of June 11th, 2020. Item 5 is monthly financials for June 2020, all received into the record. Move to Mr. Bronner for staff updates, if there are any.
I don't know that we have any tonight, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you to the staff that are attending the meeting with us. City Council comments. Just start at the top here with Mr. Drenkow.
Okay, I have a few things to say. First of all, if you look at our council procedures that we passed for ourselves a few months ago, when someone calls a question, that motion has to be seconded. I did not hear a second when Mr. Schneider's call of the question was made. When that happens, and we take a vote, and we have to have a 2/3 vote to close debate on that issue. I did not hear a vote. We certainly did not have 2/3 of the people on the commission, on the council, that voted to close the debate. So that really was unfair to those of us who were not able to make our comments about what was being said. So I'm going to make them now, and I hope that the rest of the council and people that are watching will forgive me for using my council comment time to bring up something that was actually on the agenda a few items ago. I think it's clear, listening to the conversations on the council tonight, that even our council members have no consensus on what the meaning of diversity is. I think that's something that this task force is really going to have to define and struggle. I agree with the comments that were made that the charge that's been made for this task force is incredibly broad. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to come up with a definition and a foundation of what it is that they're actually supposed to be doing. And I think it's going to be extremely easy for them to get off track. My intention for the purpose of this task force, and what I hope it will do, is basically to lay a foundation or a blueprint for what we want to do going forward with a commission, if that is in fact what we want to have done. I remind the council that these task forces all have a sunset provision. They sunset at the end of the calendar year, so December 31, unless we vote to extend the work of this task force, it will be done at that point. If I had been given the opportunity to participate in the debate, I would have offered an amendment to the charging resolution that would have been much more specific and focused in what I believe the task force should do, and set a date of the study session in September at the latest for them to report back to this council. But since I wasn't given the opportunity to make that motion, I'm hoping that the task force will be very focused in what they do. As Mr. Birgen said, I intend to go to every single task force meeting that I can. They are open public meetings like all of our city commissions, all of our city task forces, the council. They're all open public meetings. There will be a public notice of the time and place of the meeting at City Hall, and hopefully on Facebook or some other electronic media. And I would encourage people to attend the task force. I know there are some concerns that, well, we may have too many people that show up. I think that'd be fantastic if we have a lot of people that show up. This is an incredibly important thing for the city, and I want to make sure that it's handled correctly and that it's moved forward and there's actually some action taken. So I appreciate your patience in listening to me. Thank you.
All right. Next is Ms. Rathe.
Rod mentioned something that I was trying to say earlier, is that I think listening to the conversation, we all have different definitions of diversity and different contexts for how we came to that definition. And I agree with our guest council person. Everybody has a different background that we come from, and part of what I do in my work every day is help people find their voice and feel comfortable speaking their own truth and advocating for themselves. I think that for me, I can only speak for me personally, but I think why the issue of racial diversity is important, and of human rights from a racial and ethnic standpoint, is that because we've all watched the videos of people of color, particularly Black men, being killed or threatened to be killed based on the color of their skin. And I heard a Black man who was interviewed on the news, and I apologize, I can't remember his name, but he said that what he responds when people say to him, "All lives matter," which is something that we get yelled at when we're out demonstrating on behalf of human rights on Sunday afternoons, is he said it's like going to the emergency room when you have a broken arm and you're being examined by the orthopedist, and the orthopedist tells you that all bones matter. But in that moment, what really matters to you is your fractured arm and the pain you're having from that. And so I think that all people do matter. I don't think anybody standing out there would disagree with that. I think that, however, there are certain people in our country who have been discriminated against and made to be disadvantaged by our systems based on the color of their skin in ways that have been systematic. And, you know, those of us who are white, I think don't even look at it that way, don't even realize the perspective. And I've learned a lot meeting the people of color on Sunday afternoons that I would not have ever run into in town, and hearing their experiences. And that's, you know, I also have Black people in my family. And so looking at people and how they're raised and how they came to Waverly and what they love about this town and what makes them uneasy about this town, that's the only way that we're going to learn. And I hope that although I would love the task force to think about how to welcome all people, I hope that they come away with a more targeted set of goals, because I agree with Rod. I think it's going to be very difficult to hone this down into targeted, meaningful goals that we as a city can accomplish. So I wish them well with their work, and I hope to attend as many meetings as I can, and I appreciate the mayor putting this on the agenda and formulating the idea so quickly after our most recent discussion. John Lewis, who is a civil rights icon, died this past weekend, and he talked about making good trouble and about what legacy does each generation want to leave. And I think we have an opportunity with this task force and with the conversations that will ensue for us as a council and us as a community to create a legacy that the kids of this town should be very proud of. So I wish the task force well.
Thank you, Mr. Birgen.
I would like to take this opportunity to remind people that next week at our study session, we will be discussing the fireworks ordinance. I have received many comments and lots of feedback from people. But if you have memories of being woken up in the middle of the night from fireworks and you have a strong opinion about them, please contact me, contact another council member to let us know about your opinions with our current fireworks ordinance. So that should be what we're talking about next week. Second point, I am fortunate enough to have a colleague in my mathematics department who is a little obsessed with data. And this particular colleague has been collecting data on the coronavirus and the COVID-19 outbreak. At our last meeting, when we met 2 weeks ago, there were 9 active cases of COVID-19 in Braemar County. Today, there are 49. So in 2 weeks, the number of coronavirus cases has gone up by over a factor of 5. I have seen data on the ICU beds in the state of Iowa. We were at a low of ICU beds on July 1st, and we have had a steady increase of the number of patients in ICU beds since then. There is a approximately 3-week lag between people going into ICU beds and dying from the coronavirus. So we are about 3 weeks after July 1st. So we are at a low point for deaths from the coronavirus. However, science would predict that those numbers are going to start going up for the next couple of weeks. So I think we all need to be prepared to see the number of deaths in Iowa from the coronavirus going up. I know many of us are frustrated by social distancing requirements, by wearing masks, by washing hands, by staying inside, by avoiding large group gatherings. But this is not over yet, and it is just getting worse. I mean, the growth in Braemar County alone, 5-fold in 2 weeks is scary, and there's no sign that it's going down. And recall that there is a 2-week delay between exposure and coming down and being tested positive. So the work we do now, we will not see the effects of that for another 2 weeks. So I would like, I realize that we had calls for in-face meetings for the city council, and I would say that is without a doubt premature based on the data that we're seeing, based on the growth of the coronavirus in Braemar County and the expected deaths from this in the coming weeks. So I would just like to encourage everyone, please be patient, wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance, and we'll try to get through this together.
Thank you, sir. Next up, I have Mr. Schneider.
Well, obviously, everyone at this point knows I'm wildly excited to get back to the chambers because I miss you all so very much. And But there are some health needs that we do need to even talk about probably before we even do that. And I know, one of those things, and I think we might have revised council rules a couple years ago, but I do think we need to look at in the council rules the ability to be able to phone in when we're sick. I know I'm one person that I'll blow right through a cold and keep working, and probably won't be able to do that anymore. So I think those are some things that we will need to look at. So I will probably suggest here to the mayor that we get something like that on the agenda to discuss. I'm not going to comment on the data. We'll let that play out because it is a serious virus. But unfortunately, our politicians have taken a serious virus and taken advantage of that. And I think for right now, I will leave it at that. But if you know somebody who is shut in, who is elderly, who is overly freaked out by what they're seeing on the media, stop and give them a hug.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Glaser.
I wanted to echo Brian's comments. I also believe that with COVID-19 probably as worse as it's ever been and continuing to be worse, I think we need to continue to set the example as leaders in this community and continue to support the way that we're doing meetings until this is behind us. I would also encourage the boards and commissions to do the same. I have not been able to go to an airport commission meeting because they attend in person at the airport. And so I'm hoping that all the boards and commissions will follow suit and either social distance at the city hall or do a Zoom meeting so we can all participate safely.
And Ms. Beaufore.
I want to thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Hoffman, and from all the council members to serve as a council liaison, which is basically a link between the committee and the city council. So I do appreciate that. And I really, it means a lot to me to be able to do so. And I want everybody to remember to stay healthy as well. If you can wear a mask, wear a mask. If you can't wear a mask, that's you can't wear a mask. But definitely keep that social distancing up and wash your hands. That's huge. I work with nurse assistants and I teach nurse assistants, and that is the very first skill that I teach nurse assistants is how to properly wash your hands. And I want to encourage everybody to take a moment and watch a video on how to properly wash your hands. That is huge in reducing spread of any infection, is to wash your hands often, frequently, before and after you do anything. Just to lighten the mood, the joke as a nurse is, do you wash your hands before you go to the bathroom as well? Yes, I do, before and after. So, but really we do practice the social distancing. If you can wear a mask, wear a mask. Do your part so that we can reduce the spread and get back to normalcy as soon as possible. I want to be able to go see my two grandbabies that are going to be born in December, my twin grandbabies. So we need to get this over with so that I can travel and safely see my new grandbabies. So thank you. That's it.
All right, Ms. Johnson.
Well, first of all, thank you guys. Oops. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this for this month. It's been such a joy. I've learned a lot. learned a lot. So I wanted to say one other thing is that there was a quote that I had read that I thought was really powerful that I wanted to just share and state and then be done, is that to build a strong team of people together, you must see someone else's strength as a complement to your weakness, not as a threat. And it's really important people look at people's differences and people's opinions as not being a threat, because I love to challenge people. I do it all the time. I've done it to my kids their whole lives, and my husband, and it strengthens how they look at things differently. And maybe they don't have to see my opinion, and they don't have to agree, but I want to be able to make sure that they've thought about it in a different light than perhaps just the only way that they've ever thought about things. So thank you for letting me do this. It was very enjoyable. So you guys have a nice summer, rest of the summer. I'll be watching.
You do have one more meeting.
Oh, is there another one? Oh. Well, okay, I didn't know that.
Please come back.
Okay.
Study session. So.
Okay, all right.
The fun's not over yet. Keep your hands in until it comes to a complete stop.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thanks. I did not forget about you, Tim. I just like to follow with my Mayor Pro Tem right behind me. So I see you guys, Brian, and what the heck? So go ahead, sir.
I just thought you were with Carla and forgetting about me for a change.
Oh, no, they don't let me forget on that anyway. Sorry, Rod, about the instance earlier.
This, being light about it right now, I think, you know, again, I've ended up doing a lot of reflecting, having been on the council as long as I have, and a lot of the things that we've done on the council over the time I've been on it have had impacts on what the community's doing as far as how we travel or where our public services are coming out of or what our tax rate's going to be and things like that. I think we took a big step tonight getting this task force started. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge lift. People are going to have to really dig into it. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching on that. Part of what I was going to add to that was some of the comments. It is, as a task force, the mayor does have the ability to add and modify to it as needed. So if there were additional community members that come forward that would be a good add to that commission or to that task force, the mayor could do that. And the council could add that. There is the sunset provision, and obviously we can move, as we go on with that. But it is going to be a big lift, and I think Heather and James, coming from the city side of it, are going to have a lot to kind of lead. But I think there's some very good members on that commission as well that can do a set the path. Is really where I'm thinking. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Tim. I only just have a few closing comments here. Number one is just take a moment and reflect on this last weekend and everything that you missed that would have been Heritage Days, and be appreciative of when we do have Heritage Days and what it does for our community. It breaks the problems of diversity and brings us together in a lot of different areas. Really shows what our community spirit happens to be. It shows, we have a parade that parades darn near everything about our community right in front of us, the businesses, and that's the purpose of it, is taking pride and showing off what we have, fire trucks and all. Another item that I would like to bring special attention to, leisure services and the cemetery, is I attended a funeral on July 10th for Mr. Miller and was part of the escort to the cemetery. And a number of people that were joining me from out of town made multiple comments on the condition of our cemetery and how well groomed and maintained it is, the markers to indicate the procession route, all of the little things that happened, the grave site preparation, everything. And I know that's part of the vault company's responsibility, but it was noted, and it's due for public recognition for that. As far as the task force thing goes, or the creation of the task force tonight, I appreciate the opportunity to have it, be formed through resolution this evening. What is unfortunate that has come out is the identification that there are people out there waiting for this task force or me to fail. That's very unfortunate. And that there are people that have already declared this task force even before it's even been created as a joke. I think that's one of the bigger issues that I've already realized out of this, is the people that don't even give it a chance. So all I can ask the entire community is give it a chance. We have 16 individuals that have put themselves out there to become vulnerable to being chastised, shunned in whatever manner, or even be put on a pedestal. They're vulnerable, okay? All of us here, myself, the council members, even the city staff, are vulnerable by choosing to run in an election, go through a campaign, take a job where they're under public scrutiny over the things that they do day in and day out for their paycheck to support their families. And we have individuals that don't want to give anybody an opportunity to see something potentially be promising, to determine what opportunities out there exist to improve. That's what I find shameful at this point in time, and hopefully that's the biggest thing that we can overcome, number one. One last item before we call for adjournment is an individual that attends pretty much all of our meetings that you don't see, I don't see, nobody out there sees, is our trustworthy cameraman here at City Council, Mr. Lucas. I want to congratulate him in advance of his upcoming wedding on Saturday. So thank you for that. And with that, I seek a motion to adjourn, if I may.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Kangas, second by Schneider. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, the lagging eye there. It's
That's
still
okay. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.